I'm Stephen Smith from Lake Oswego, Oregon, and this is my 1965 vintage road racing Beetle. Um, when it came to get a race car, I wanted something unique and different, and this fit the bill. You see them every day on the road, but it's something you very rarely ever see on the track unless you see me. Um, I got this car in 2002 and then started racing it in 2003. And I got it from the Emerys, who build Outlaw 356 Porsches, and we got it from the original owner after being in storage in a barn for 33 years, and I got it back to its old home track in Portland and got him to come out and see it back on the track in its first race again, so it was pretty amazing. It was very emotional. This car had over 35 period race weekends in its original history. In 1970-71, he decided he couldn't compete anymore, and he had a small family and decided to just put it away. So he put it up on blocks, drained the fluids, and flipped up the tow bar, left the magnetic towing lights on it, put his race suit and his helmet in the passenger seat, and that's where it sat until 1996 when the Emerys were able to get it from him. And then the Emerys had it, took it all apart, had it for a project for someday in the future, which never came. And then I met them when I got my 356, and they kept asking me, you ought to come racing with us. And I said, I have a race car. And I said, what about that in the back? And they're like, you can't have it. It's one of the most documented vintage race cars in the Northwest. And when you get it, it's going to piss people off, because all the Ferraris and Porsches, all the snobs will be like, what's that Volkswagen doing here? But the car had such an impeccable history and provenance and documentation that its history was indisputable for what it was. And they're like, besides, it's going to piss people off. And well, that's the car for me. And they were like, well, that's too bad, you can't have it. So for 2 years, I browbeat them back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then one day, Rod Emery called me up and said, I'll tell you what, we don't just sell cars, we pick the owner for it. And my dad and I had a long talk, and we decided that you should have that car. There's a line of people 10 deep who want it. You have 48 hours to decide. And at sunup, I was out there with the cash, and I bought it. And then we spent almost 7 or 8 months putting it all back together, getting it race prepped so that I could start racing it again. And it's really cool bringing it to its old home tracks in the Northwest at Portland and Seattle, because sometimes you get some of the old guys who were young kids who saw it, and they're like, oh my God, is this the same car that I saw at the Rose Cup in 1968? And I'm like, it is. And they're like, that's incredible. I was a small child, and I saw this car race, and it's amazing to see it again. And so I love bringing it out to the track. It's one of the silliest race cars, yet it's a serious race car. And it really makes people smile and chuckle, because they're like, what the hell? I thought I saw a Beetle out there. I must be hallucinating. And but you did, and it's mine, and it's me.